Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Jeremiah chapter 17. We're going to try to move on from verse 9. Verse 9 talks about the heart being the most uh, uh, corrupt, incurable, okay? Um, and it's kind of amazing to me, but such a simple truth here. It is deceitful, incurable, right? Verse 9, the heart is more deceitful than anything else and incurable. This is the starting point. Now, there are a lot of answers where we could say, here's where we start from, right? This is where we start for. Why is the world the way it is? Because the heart is more deceitful than anything else and incurable. Why it's so evil? Why do people act evil? Because the heart is more deceitful than anything else. That's why. And this is what has to change. This is why man has to be born again. This is not a reform. See, the Israelites had the law of God, the Pharisees, the law of God. Christianity follows in their little religious steps, okay? And so anyway, but you have to change people's heart. The gospel message is about changing the heart. It's not about signing up members. This is why we're shocked sometimes when people act in their sinful nature. All right, well, let's move on. Okay, because this is so important here. Verse 9 says, the heart is more deceitful than anything else, and incurable, who can understand it? Verse 10, I, Yahweh, examine the mind, and I test the heart to give to each according to his way, according to what his actions deserve. Okay? Now, this talks about the judgment that is going to come. Now, this is interesting how to look at this, the judgment. First and foremost, let's start with that the all-knowing God who sees all, who knows the heart. He says, I examine the mind and I test the heart. That when you grasp the meaning of that, if you do not have the gospel, which I'm going to get to in a moment, it is a frightening thing. I mean, sometimes I think about when I pray, as I'm praying, and I'm thinking to myself, well, God is not going to be snowed by me. He's not going to be tricked by me. If I pretend, Lord, I promise you I will never, ever, ever do this again. Well, God is already, yeah, right. He knows my heart. He knows my mind. Yet I examine the mind and I test the heart. So then there's going to come a day where he says, I'm going to give to each man according to his way, according to what his actions deserve. So that is a frightening aspect. Unless, okay, it is a frightening aspect unless, I'll get to the unless in a moment. He says, I, Yahweh, examine the mind, I test the heart, and I'm going to give to everyone according to his way. So this is the very nature of the, again, judgment is another one of these things that's threaded throughout the Bible, that God is, we're all going to stand before God. That's a frightening thing. And it is not a day of judgment, but it is a judgment day for, okay, and you could say those who did not obey the gospel. So this is where this comes into play, that if you do not obey the gospel, God is going to give to you according to your action. So in some respect, think about this, because there is all kinds of evil. When it can be very disheartening, right? When you look at what is going on in the world, people in power, people get away with stuff, and they get away with it all the time. People in power, right? Or you can have a person who robs a bank, and guess what? And it seems like he got away with it. Goes on, live his life, become an upstanding citizen. But understand this, that though he might get away with it in this life, and as I said, there are people who get away with all kinds of stuff, the day of reckoning always comes. The day of reckoning always comes. Now, there's three things I'm going to approach with this, and a lot of people are not going to like all of them. But first and foremost, think about this. So he gets away with it. So if you do not know God, if you do not obey the gospel, then the day will come when you will meet God. The day will come, you will meet God, because he's going to give to you according to what you deserve. Now, the second thing is this, and remember I said unless you obey the gospel. So if you don't obey the gospel, then you will get what you deserve. But if you obeyed the gospel, Jesus got what you deserve. Jesus got what you deserve. If you remember Isaiah 53, right? Isaiah 53, let's quickly go there. Isaiah 53, one of the Old Testament rare prophecies of the Messiah. It says, "Who has believed our report?" Now, who has believed what we have heard, and who has the arm of the Lord been revealed to? Grew up before him as a tender plant, as the root out of the dry ground. He didn't have an impressive form and majesty that we should look upon him, and no appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of suffering, who knew what sickness was. He was like someone people turned away from. He was despised, and we didn't value him. Yet he himself bore our sicknesses and carried away our pains. But we in turn regarded him stricken down by God and afflicted. But he was pierced because of our transgressions, crushed because of our iniquities. Punishment for our peace was upon him, and we are healed by his wounds. We all have went astray like sheep. We have all turned to our own way, and the Lord punished him for the iniquity of us all. This is incredible, especially to be in the Old Testament. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he didn't open his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughter, and like a sheep silent before his shearers, he didn't open his mouth. He was taken away because of oppression and judgment. And who considers his faith? He was cut off from the land of the living. He was struck because of my people's rebellion. They made his grave with the wicked and with the rich at his death, although he had done no violence, and he had not spoken deceitfully. Yet the Lord was pleased to crush him severely. When you make him a restitution offering, he will see his seed and prolong his days, and by his hands the Lord's pleasure will be accomplished. He will see it out of his anguish, and he will be satisfied with this knowledge. My righteous servant will justify many, He will carry their iniquities. Therefore, I've given him a portion. I've given him many as a portion. He will receive the mightiest spoil because he submitted himself to death. He was counted among the rebels, and he bore the sins of many and intercede for the rebels. That's one of the most profound prophecies, of course, of Jesus of the Old Testament. So now, right here, when he says that he will give to each man according to his way and according to what his actions deserve, that's if you don't obey the gospel. I believe Isaiah 53. But if you don't believe Isaiah 53, if you reject the offering of the Messiah, then you're going to face God in his wrath. So the promise here is God's going to give to everyone according to what they deserve. And here's again, except or unless you believe on the Messiah. You accept and obey what God has done for you to escape this fate. So if you've done that to escape this fate, then guess what? Jesus is the one that God dealt with on your behalf. See, that's why I took time to read that entire chapter. Jesus, and so and in so many ways, I almost stopped. Let me go back there and look at. I'm going to show you something. Oh, here it is. So verse 10 says, "Yet the Lord was pleased to crush him severely, and when you make him a restitution offering." By the way, and what I'm giving you is the long version, the written out version of the word propitiation. This is something that you should know. Because with it, every denomination fails. Because see, every denomination is built upon works. Every denomination is built upon a theology, unfortunately, that has human effort, that makes human effort the way that you think you're going to, you're going to be justified by God. Bad way. But notice what he says right here, yet he was pleased to crush him severely. And when you make him a restitution offering, he will see his seed and prolong his days, yet, and by his hands the Lord's pleasure will be accomplished, and he will see it out of his anguish, and he will be satisfied. That's that word propitiation right there. The word propitiation, that's what it means, is that God was satisfied with what Jesus did. Okay? God was satisfied with what Jesus did. God is not satisfied with what you do. So now, if you attempt to be righteous before God, then he says he's going to give to you according to your way, according to what you deserve. So here's the problem. If you think you're going to stand before God and say, okay, Lord, God's going to say, give it your best shot. Well, God, let's see. I didn't, and I'm going to use myself for an example. Hey, God, I don't drink, never did. Don't smoke, never did. I don't do drugs, never did. I don't steal. God can go, oh, wait a minute. Did you just say you didn't steal? Ah, case A, B, and C. Okay. Well, okay, God, I don't lie. What? Wait a minute. Did you just say you didn't lie? But God isn't going to say, well, let's go to then other stuff that I saw. See, remember, look, he says, I examine the minds, I test the heart. So, Lynn, let's go into what you don't want me to say in front of everybody. But guess what? If I reject God's plan of salvation, He's going to give me what I deserve. Let me give you an example. Why a lot of people may say, I don't commit adultery. I haven't committed adultery. I haven't did all these other sins. For example, there's one command in the law that says if you see your neighbor's ox, if it gets lost, the neighbor's ox got lost, you see it. And he says, go get your brother's ox and hold on to it until your brother comes looking for his lost ox. Now suppose you said, oh my God, I don't want to be bothered with that ox. So I close my blinds. I just committed a sin before God. And also, let me clue you into something. That sin is just as bad. As I told you before, all Adam did was ate fruit. He just ate fruit and caused all of this mess that we are dealing with here. You see, the way God thinks about sin, and it will behoove you and us to look at sin the way God looks at sin. Because when he says right here, I test the minds, I examine the minds, and I test the hearts. You need to understand, you don't want to be under that. I want to be in what God, the propitiation. So all of this that God gives me, he gave to Jesus. Jesus took what I deserve. Jesus took it. And that's why it is utter foolishness for you to think that your good deeds, see, your good deeds is good enough. You know why? Because you will never do enough. And remember, God tests the heart. He just doesn't look at the actions and says, okay, you didn't steal, you didn't kill, but you didn't take care of your brother's lost ox. See, which was just as bad as a sin. You don't want God giving you what you deserve. You don't want God giving you what you deserve by his standard, by his measure. Now, some people may argue, but that's not fair. It's God's standard. God created the universe. God created us. It is God's sovereign will to do with us as he please. So while you arguing with that, I said, well, I ain't going to win this one. And God had mercy on me, opened my heart. And now, guess what? When I read this, to give to each according to his way, according to what his actions deserve. Ouch! Jesus! Yet the Lord was pleased to crush him severely when you make him a restitution offering. That's the difference there, see. Now, one other thing, let me say this, and some of y'all may not like this. Remember I said there's so much that people get away with as far as evil is concerned, that there's that person who got away with all kinds of atrocities and evil. Well, suppose that person does the same thing that I did, which was believe on Jesus Christ. So now God doesn't deal with him as he deserved because God dealt with him in Jesus. So the Apostle Paul is a great example of that. Remember, he tortured people. He went off and he caused people to blaspheme, he renounced their faith. He jailed people. He was a brute. But Jesus bore his sin. So that's the thing, guys. Okay, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I'll see you in the next study.